Welcome back to 100 Days of Code with Here. My name is Shruti and we are in day 51 or rather week 11 of 100 Days of Code with Here. And as I've said in my previous videos, if you have no idea what this series is about, there is a nice blog post which explains what 100 Days of Code with Here is. And then you can go on to look at all the different solution videos or solution blog posts from day 0 to 55 so far. We've been posting a task every day since the 1st of April on our Twitter handle @yourdev. So that's where you get your tasks for 100 days of code. So this is for this video, we are going to cover tasks 51 to 55. Now, in the previous videos, or rather in the previous tasks, we have looked at the Interactive Maps API, the Geocoding and Search API, and different endpoints of it. And then the last 2 weeks, week 9 and 10, I guess, we covered we got a sneak peek into the routing version 8. And now it's time to go back to or take a look into routing version 7. So the routing version 7 is also like a very powerful API. And again, it says, as it says, it's just as routing. There are some differences between version 7 and version 8, and we will end up looking at what those differences are when we use the routing version 7. As the version control already says, the routing version 7 is the older API. It has more endpoints at this point and will coexist with the routing version 8. So with day 51, what we wanted to do is again keep the same pedestrian routing, the pedestrian route that we got from day 50, and then avoid something, right? So with this week, we are also starting the Avoiding Things series, wherein we are going to check at different routing mechanisms, different routing engines, and then also include avoiding certain places, certain types of roads, certain objects, etc. in your route. So let's quickly take a look at the basic differences between routing version 8 and version 7. So if you click on API references, you'll get the basic differences in the terminology of it. So API key remains the same. Now this, so our starting and also the origin and destination was actually waypoint. So waypoint 0 would be the origin, and then waypoint 1 would be the destination. So I've changed that. And then the transport mode and the routing mode has been combined into mode. So let's change that to mode. And then let's make it shortest and pedestrian. So we don't need this now. And now the return parameters. So in the routing version 7, return is actually called, or rather, what do you want the route for? And then that is representation. So I want it for representation. I want it to display the route only at this point. So I'm going to take everything else out. So you have drag and drop, you have navigation, you have other parameters that you can put into the representation. But for now, I only need it for display. So I have taken the display. And the most important thing is this is the version 7. So I'm going to take this out. And so if you call the get routing service, the JavaScript wrapper for it, you will be calling the version 7. And of course, the result will be similar but not same. So I'm going to hide this for now and just log my output. So now if you check this, you have the similar object with the response route. And then within that, you have one route with legs, with modes of transport, and then the shape parameter, which has the decoded form of polyline. So if you saw in routing 8, we had the encoded polyline, and here what you have is the decoded version of the polyline, which is basically points on the line. And we're going to use the shape object to draw out the line, the route onto our map. So let's do that. To save time, I am going to just pick up the code from an example here. So you go to documentation, you go to routing, JavaScript. There we go. And in the example section, there is a nice example for pedestrian routing. So let's check that. So yeah, it also gets a pedestrian route from A to B. This is what we have. So if you see, this is the routing service version 7. You have the modes, transports, waypoint, and then we want add route to shape, add route shape on map. We want this one. So I'm just gonna copy this part. It says route is not defined. So let's see what they've defined as the route. So you have result.response.route.0. So let's add this here. This should work. And you have a nice little route, your bicycle route. Now, the aim of day 51 was to avoid certain things, right? What were those? We wanted to avoid the park. So if you look at this, the route is clearly going through a park, and that is my destination right here, and it's clearly going through a park. And I want to avoid walking or bicycling through the park because I have serious pollen allergies, and if I ride through the park right now, I would not stop sneezing. So what do we do to avoid these parks? So now let's go back to our routing API, the API reference section. So this is routing version 7. And if you take a look at the sort of routing parameters itself, right? If you take a look at the routing parameters itself, and if you take a look at the routing mode. So as I said, in the routing mode, they have combined the routing and transport mode. And then you have routing mode type. In that routing mode types, you will see that there are the first things is we already saw the transport mode, we saw the routing mode, and then you had traffic, which we've also taken a look at. And then if you come down to route features, you will see that there is these features which you can avoid from your route. And so I'm going to use park. And then these are the weights that you can assign. So 0 being it does not matter, you avoid it or not. -1 being it tries to avoid it or avoids the route. So what it does is it assigns penalties. So if you have a route that is the shortest, but then going through a park, that will still appear the next best option and not the best option. So let's do this. Let's assign park, and let's assign the weight of -1 to it. So this was in mode, and I have park and I have -1. So now when you see this, oh, this is, yeah. So now when you see this, you can see that my route does not go through the park but goes from outside of it. Now day 52 is pretty simple. You just need a bicycle route between the same 2 points. We've seen the pedestrian route and we've avoided parks. Now let's go to routing with bicycles. So if you have seen the routing mode and routing mode types, you have the basic pedestrian, car, and truck. and public transport, but you can also see that there is also the routing mode called bicycle in the routing version 7. So I'm going to change the pedestrian to bicycle. I'm going to take this out, and that's about it. So you see this will be a bicycle route, and again you can see it is different from the walking route, as the park will probably have a specific bicycle lane. So this route takes you through those specific bicycle lanes. So that was day 52. Now, with day 53, like I said, we are on the avoid series. Okay, so we are going to avoid another thing here. Now, with bicycle ride, bicycle routes, you also have these bicycle lanes in sort of dirt road scenarios wherein a nice bicycle may go through it, but my city bike definitely won't go through it without a flat tire. So I want to avoid dirt roads in between these routes. So again, if you go to the routing mode type, you will see the transport modes, and then you want the features, route features that we checked out a while ago. And in this routing features, like the last time we saw, we had cars, motorways, toll roads. This time we have dirt roads. And dirt roads it is. So we will add dirt roads to bicycle routing. And then this time I want to completely avoid them or have a heavier restriction on it. So I'm going to use -2 as my weight. And well, I think here it doesn't really make a difference because there's no dirt road where I live. But you will see that if your bike were going through a certain dirt road, it would avoid it completely. Or rather, if you have -3, it would completely exclude it or give it further restrictions with -2. So that was day 53. For day 54, we are going to check out another transport mode, which is public transport. Now, again, as you saw, there are various transport modes in the routing V7. And so one of them is public transports. And the difference between public transport and public transport timetable is that the public transport timetables which are available, which the city has provided or which we have available, the route is going to be given according to that. So if you're going to check the plain public transport first. So I have the shortest, bicycle, and then public transport. That's it. That's all the changes I need to make to get a public transport route. And now if I click save here, I will see that, or rather I should get a public transport route from here to my destination. And if you see in your return object, you will see things like you have the shortest, your transport mode is public transport, and then you have your waypoint telling you um, what mode of transport you should use. Now, if you add certain things like summaries, etc., to it, it'll also give you different sort of the whole waypoint to it, or the step by step transition. So as to how do you step, how much do you need to walk, how much do you which public transport do you need to take, what line, etc. So we can check that quickly with adding, let's see, with adding another display feature. So representation, and then we can do turn by turn, or we can do, let's say, so what we can do is we can ask for route attributes, and in that I just want like a summary, let's say. So I'm going to add a summary, And in the summary, in the object, I should see a summary somewhere. Yes, perfect. And then that's it. You have a summary of the trip takes so and so minutes, the trip takes so and so kilometers. It still does not tell me what public transport. So let's try another parameter. So you need, let's say, legs, and in the leg attributes I want maneuvers. Now let's see, what do we have? That's exactly what we wanted. So you have the transportation mode. So you have the M1, which is the first. I need to walk from my place to the Kaiserin Augusta Straße U-Bahn. Then I need to take the transportation U-Bahn to my next destination, and so on. So with this, so I need to catch the line U6 and so on. So basically, it will give you details of how that public transport is supposed to be. Now, that's it for, I guess, day 54. Now, public transports are good and all, but I have a huge problem with buses. I am super motion sick and I need to avoid buses while traveling. And so usually I try to take either trams, the tube, or the trains, but I try to avoid buses. And now, how do I get a route that avoids buses? So again, with with the public transport as your transport mode, you have the possibility to avoid transportation types. Now, let's take a look first at where the buses are. So, with this route that I've received here, if I check the route and I check the maneuver, I have go to the station, take the rail, that's fine, walk, that's fine, take the transit bus. So, yeah. So, we have here, I need to take the N7 to cover sort of this much distance of the route, and I don't want this. So, in the routing parameters, you will have something called avoid transport types. So let's look at this. So with avoid transport types, it will give you all the transport types that you can avoid while getting a route. So, and if you want to see the list of the possible public transport types that can be avoided, you will see this. So you have boat ferries, tunnels, etc. And if you come down to the public transport types, you should see the public transport types that you can avoid. So there you go. So what you want to avoid is, I want to avoid public buses. And you can see there are other things that you can avoid as well if you're getting a route through those. So I'm going to use bus public and use that as my avoid transport type. So let's do that. And then this was avoid transport type. So now let's see the route that I get. If you check in the responses, you have walk, then you have still walking, go to the station, U6, which is the underground, which is fine. Then you have get off at the station. You have turn, go, and this is still walking. So the part where I was supposed to take a bus has been turned into walking, which is still fine with me. So that was day 55. And with this, we have completed week 11 of 100 days of code. We have just started looking at the routing version 7, and we have sort of looked into the avoiding things series. So if you've liked it so far, please go to our Twitter handle @yourdev and keep following 100 days of code. If you felt this was too fast or you don't like the video form of tutorials, you can also take a look at the accompanying blog post. So there's also a blog post for days 51 through 55. And if that's what you prefer, you can head to our blog section, which is developer.here.com/blog, and you'll find a bunch of blog posts with 100 days of code as well as other blog posts exploring other APIs. And if you just want to download the code snippets for days 0 to 55 now, you can head over to our GitHub repository and you can basically clone the repository and work from there. So that's it, and keep coding.